I'm Natalie Tysdal, a journalist who decided enough is enough. I left a career that looked glamorous to do what I was scared of doing, going out on my own. I'm a married working mom of 3. On this podcast, we're going to talk about issues that really matter. Why am I not sleeping? What's up with that diet everyone's talking about? Are my kids falling behind? How do I leave that job and start over? Welcome to the Natalie Tysdal podcast. I'm so glad you're here. Can you rewire your brain for happiness? Today, we're diving into a topic that touches every single one of us, stress and its impact on our health. Hi, everyone. It's Natalie. So glad you are with me today. In this episode, I am joined by the amazing Dr. Laurel Mellin. She is an expert in what's called emotional brain training, also known as EBT. She's a health psychologist, a New York Times bestselling author, and she developed EBT during her 40 years as a professor in the School of Medicine at the University of California, San Francisco. Her work has received awards from the American Medical Association and the U.S. Department of Consumer Affairs. And she is here to share some groundbreaking insights about how stress impacts our health and, more importantly, how we can actually rewire our emotional brain to reduce stress and improve our overall well-being. So here's what you can expect to take away from my conversation with her today. First, we're going to work on understanding what stress is. It's a major problem and it contributes to so many health issues like weight gain, high blood pressure, and so many other things. We're also going to learn more about EBT. It's a very simple system that helps clear past stress and manage your current stress. We're going to talk about the importance of understanding our brain states, and we're going to use emotional tools to process emotions and then change behaviors. And we'll get into how to improve your relationships, your parenting, and even weight management. Dr. Laurel explains how you can start using these emotional tools to make positive changes in your life starting today. I'd love for you to take just a minute to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss one, and be sure you sign up for my newsletter. You can do that by going to natalietysdal.com. Let's get started today. You're going to love this conversation with Dr. Laurel Mellin. Laurel, it's a pleasure, and there are so many things I want to talk to you about today. I know we could go in a lot of different directions, but for the people that listen to this podcast, I think stress is one of the greatest problems we have. And it, as you are going to explain to us, leads to so many other issues, including weight gain, high blood pressure, you name it. So let's get to the root of you and your research and stress.
What a great question. Actually, I spent 42 years at the University of California, San Francisco, with the opportunity to figure out why we do what we do when we tell ourselves we won't do it, whether it's getting stressed out or anxious or overeating or drinking too much or whatever it is. And it turns out it's circuits in our emotional brain, our unconscious mind. Now, you would probably say, if you have an unconscious mind problem, you probably should go to a shrink. But at the university, we looked at it based on biology. Based on essentially what is going on in your stress level. And it turns out you can rewire your own emotional brain to clear away the stress of the past and to spiral up out of today's stress in about 1 to 3 minutes, just by using a very simple system we call emotional brain training to clear the stress and get back to a brain state of ultimate power and connection. We call that brain state 1, and you feel kind of a sense of joy inside, sense of a glow in your body when you feel that way.
Okay, you make it sound way too easy, because we do. And I talk about, and I know it can be, and maybe that's the problem, is we think we have to do so much to deal with our past and our everything else. But tell us what that looks like.
What it looks like is, I mean, it's hard to imagine that it's this simple. And even people who are in EBT groups, emotional brain training groups, it takes them a while to figure out, oh, so I don't have to work so hard. I don't have to write down my food, and I don't have to think positive thoughts. All I need to do is figure out my number. And so that's it. So essentially, over the years, this was developed over more than 40 years. We started off with people just saying, how did they feel and what did they need? And we realized that when people are in stress, they don't know how they feel and they don't know what they need because they're stressed out. So around 1980, we surpassed the ability of thinking and doing basically cognitive behavioral therapy to solve our stress problem and our health problems because there's just too much stress. And what happens is the brain downshifts from being able to think about things into the emotional brain, where if you want to clear stress, you must process emotions. But it's not a matter of just saying, how do I feel? What do I need? There are 5 levels of stress in the brain. So this is a simple part. Okay. There are 5 levels of stress in the brain. When you're at low stress, feeling great and rewarded and of purpose, you're at brain state 1 and the thinking brain's in charge. And then when you feel good, it goes down here. And then here, right around here, the limbic brain is involved. And then it goes down to the reptilian brain. So feeling great, feeling good, feeling a little stressed, definitely stressed, and stressed out. All you have to ask yourself for self-regulation, for immediate results, to turn off those chemicals that make you overeat or feel anxious or stressed, is you say, what's my number? And then you, on the app, use the emotional processing tool. It's emotions. You can't think your way out of an eating binge or a drinking binge or an argument. 3, 4, or 5, you apply it. And within 1 to 3 minutes, you get back to brain state 1, where chemically you feel at your best and you say, what was I so upset about anyway?
Are you looking for ways to stay energized, healthy, and help your family stay healthy? I've started taking supplements from Seeking Health, and it has changed the game for me. I no longer worry that my family is getting enough of the vitamins we need, and I know the quality of what we're taking is top notch. I take an immunity support supplement, magnesium, and several others, including electrolytes, to stay hydrated. So many people ask me about these supplements that I've made it really easy for you to find right on my website, natalietysdal.com/favorites. Also, bonus, I have a coupon code to help you save 10% on your order. You will find that coupon code on the website as well. Go to natalietysdal.com/favorites. Click on Seeking Health. I may earn a small commission if you purchase there, but that's just to help my small business grow, the website and the podcast, to keep this news and good interviews coming your way. Again, natalietysdal.com/favorites and click on Seeking Health. Wow. Okay. So tell me about, let's back up a little bit, because you have studied this. You have been a part of this. You've written books about this. I mean, you are the expert in this. Tell me how you discovered this.
I discovered it. I don't like suffering in myself or anyone else. And I was suffering from binge eating and weight problems, and I didn't know what to do about it. And so I became a nutritionist. I got a position, a great faculty job at UCSF, and I began to work with an interdisciplinary team. And I tried to find the root cause of why I was overeating, what was going on with me, and I was applying it to research on child obesity. What I did is I went into the literature. I knew that cognitive behavioral methods were not working. And there was this great study, always go to the library, the research from a woman, Hilda Brooke, who was this tiny little lady who was a psychiatrist at Baylor College of Medicine in Texas. And she wrote that it was about emotional connection. And I was 28, and I said, oh, well, that's not a problem. I'll just teach emotional connection tools. So I started doing it. And of course, we researched it because we're scientists. And so we researched it, and the results show that the kids stopped overeating. But what really impressed me is this mother. And you know how it is when you have children, your heart just bleeds for them. Whatever is going on, their pain is amplified in our own pain, right? And so this woman came up to me who was learning the skills with her daughter at the university. And she said, what did you do to my daughter? She used to steal money from my purse to get food. She would go into the refrigerator and start hiding cookies. And she didn't want to do anything except, watch television. And she says now she wants to go out and play, and she doesn't care about the extra food. In that moment, the brain science to explain that would not be available for 25 years. But I knew I would devote my career to finding out what stopped her suffering. And it turned out that it was the emotional brain, that we were rewiring the stress response so people get back to that state of connection where chemically they're at their best, and those chemical drives stop. And so it's easy to be happy, healthy, and move forward with life. So that's the story. What can I say? One little girl changed my life.
Wow. And it's interesting and fun to look back and think how those small moments turn out to be so huge in our lives and how it led to your career. Today, I see so many people who are stressed, who are maybe overeating, over drinking, all of that. And I do a lot of these interviews. I was a health reporter for many years, and we find ways. Obesity medications are the big hot new thing, or different diets or different therapies. And do you think any of those work, or is it really as simple as the emotional element?
Actually, I love the fact that you said the emotional element. So let me just address that as well. So essentially, when I'm talking about using emotional tools, instantly everyone thinks psychology.
Sure.
Essentially, what is unknown and why this science is hidden in all these journals that no one ever reads is that it's the emotional circuits in your brain that determine your chemicals, your electricities, your thoughts, your emotions, and your behaviors. And if they have been wired for stress, you're going to, through no fault of your own, be triggered, be in chronic stress for the rest of your life, really. It's the only reason we have emotional there is because it's the emotional brain, and it requires emotional tools to change it. What I know is that all the methods that we work so hard and we use nothing, everything helps a little bit, but there's no question in the science that when you're thinking your way through it, you're trying to change your behavior, you're trying to change your activities. This is all in your head, in your neocortex. Yeah. And your neocortex has all these plans and has to do everything right. If you just let go of control, say, it's really about the circuits in my emotional brain, these survival circuits that drive me to do things I keep doing over and over again. All I have to do is relax and trust my body and learn these tools where when I'm stressed, this is how magnificent this is. Ultimately, it's always about the circuit. That is the science. We are our circuits. And we used to think that we had to go to a therapist to fix our circuits. We can actually identify and change the circuit. So let's say this. Let's say all of a sudden you find yourself overeating. In that moment, if you did an MRI of your brain or an fMRI and you tried to find the circuit that was causing you to overeat, it would not tell you the answer. However, you can do it naturally, because in the moment that you are about to overeat, or even later when you bring up a memory of having overeaten, the exact circuit that drives you to overeat is unlocked. The neurons are unlocked, and it is open to change. You can't change a pattern unless you activate the circuit in stress. And what EBT allows you to do is, in the moment, or when you think about it later, oh, what did I just do? You bring up the thought, you essentially quickly process your emotions with these precise tools. And in about 3 minutes, you will get the message from your brain that is telling you why you overeat or overdrink or get into arguments or have to be perfect or whatever it is. And the circuits are open. And if you give it a new message, it will begin to change it. In the moment, you'll feel better. And then as you learn how to rewire it and you hit that over and over again, what happens is you automatically and spontaneously change. You don't have to work on it. You just essentially stop the overeating, stop the people pleasing, stop the perfections. Whatever you decide that you want to stop, the emotional brain training tools will give you the power and the support to change it.
So let's talk about some of those specific things. You mentioned perfectionism, overeating. The list goes on, right?
Yes.
For a lot of people, they might not know, or give me your opinion on this, what the problem is. Do you think most people would identify, I'm a perfectionist? Or I think a lot of people don't know. They just know they're not happy.
Right. So EBT takes the analysis out of it. All you do is get up in the morning, and because remember, neuroscientist Antonio Damasio, one of the greatest neuroscientists of all time, renamed homeostasis joy. When you get to that optimal state of biochemistry, you're in joy. So you wake up in the morning and you say, what in the world am I doing with my day? Like this morning I get up, the dog's doing this, my husband's doing this, go to this thing, all these things. You say, what matters? Matters is my mindset, my brain state. So you say, what I'm doing is going to the optimal brain state to joy. Say, what am I doing with my day? I am creating joy in my life. That's what I'm doing. And when I'm not in joy, and again, this is not happiness. This is being grounded in purpose. This is being connected to your body. This is knowing that you have that glow and that you can handle whatever it is, and you're going to do the right thing, even when it's hard. That sense that we all need to be that kind of person, right? We can't be that way all the time because we're in stress and it knocks us out. So the moment that you don't feel good in your body, you don't have to know why. You essentially process your emotions. It switches off the circuit, the survival circuit that tells you that you're bad or that you're perfectionistic or there's other people are bad. You have to be right all the time or eating, drinking, whatever. And it switches it to one of your choosing that promotes health. So essentially, you don't ask yourself, why am I doing this? You say, the reason I'm doing it is a wire. I'm going to switch off the wire that makes me stressed out, and I'm going to activate the wire that makes me my best self, connected to the deepest part of myself.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I had a therapist tell me once that you can't fix anything until you can see it from up here. If you're in the thick of all of this stuff, and what I'm kind of hearing from you is that when you activate this, you can see what the problem is.
It is.
Yes.
Yeah. So what happens is you activate it, you say, you complain, you do everything your mother told you not to do. So what we've learned in EBT, we've just followed one thing, how the brain likes to work. And we've just copied it with these tools. But almost everything that we've learned from studying the brain is opposite what we're typically hear in therapy. Many therapists bolt on EBT to their practice. So do physicians. So we want to be part of that system. Yeah. But the issue is, in order to find out what is going on inside of you and to alleviate it quickly and then use the same information to rewire it over time, you have to start, wait till you hear this, by complaining. I mean, you have to not be sensible and say, well, you know what? I don't really like what's going on. You have to be 4 years old and in about 3 or 4 sentences, complain. That activates the circuit. And then what else did your mother tell you never to do is anger. You do a few expressions of productive, quick anger in your head, and that circuit opens up like a flower. You have one sadness, one fear, and one, what was my part of it. And what happens in your mind, and this is why we always say, if it's not fun, it's not EBT, is then the unconscious mind is open. You think you're doing something because your mother told you not to do whatever, but the actual message comes up from your unconscious mind. It floats up to your conscious mind. And once you have that information, you can use positive emotional neuroplasticity and say the opposite and hit the wire and begin to destroy it. That's how simple it is.
Okay. So I in a minute here, I want you to give us more about EBT and the app. But before you do that, can you give me some very practical things that people listening can do right now to help themselves?
Right. What I want you to do right now is do 2 things. Number 1, whenever you don't feel good, do not blame or shame yourself. The response that you don't like is actually been planted in your emotional brain, because the emotional brain has no walls, through no fault of your own. And then it was buried in long-term memory. And once it's buried in long-term memory, you have to have emotional skills to process it. So it just keeps running over and over again. Number 1. So when you do something you don't like, it's not you, it's a wire. And just say that. Say, it's not me, it's just a wire, and I can rewire it. No shame or blame.
Good one. Okay.
One more?
Yes. Give me 2 more if you can. Let's give 3 practical things.
Okay. What I want you to do is also appreciate, do not ask yourself, how do I feel when you're stressed? Because your brain can only work to give you an accurate answer when you're at the lower stress levels. So again, there are 5 levels of stress in the brain: 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. When you're at 1, you have elevated emotions and you have love and gratitude and hope, forgiveness, awe, and joy. You don't have any needs. At 2, you know exactly, I feel lonely. I need a hug. I feel hungry. I need some food. Until you know exactly. But after you cross this level into the limbic brain, these emotions are trouble. They are scattered, stuck, or toxic. And either you'll avoid them and eat, drink, spend, or whatever, or you'll get ramped up with overthinking, feeling overwhelmed, whatever. Don't ask. Ask yourself, what's my number? Am I at 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5? And then for now, if you don't have these skills, just say, Well, I'm at brain state 5 right now. I'm in stress overload, and there's a lot of people in this world who are in stress overload. I'm not alone, and I'm just going to accept that for who I am right now. Later, get the EBT skills, and you can just spiral up. But know your number. Then I'm talking about relationships now. If you're in a relationship and you know that you're at brain state 5 a lot. In fact, your set point is 5. And maybe your partner is at 3, 4, or 5. Anytime you're not wired, in other words, have a habit or a set point at 1, intimacy is not going to work too well. Intimacy, spirituality, sexuality, and food are all very primitive and very sensitive to stress. So don't leave your partner, okay? Unless that's just something you need to do for safety. Because essentially, instead, raise your own set point. Raise your own set, get to one. All of a sudden, this person that looks so unappealing, you're like, what was wrong with me? Why did I ever choose that person? All of a sudden, they catch your higher brain state, and it brings out the best in them. And oftentimes, the relationship just blossoms. So, and the same is for food. You feel like at 5, you feel like you're an addict, and you're never going to get over it. Raise your set point and feel the difference.
So, as you're talking about these different brain states, and I know you're going to give us the tool here in a minute so that we can help with this with your app. Do they really go up and down through these brain states like daily, hourly, yearly, or do you find people get stuck in one for a long period?
What a great question, Natalie. There's two. I met my husband about 11 years ago, and I had decided to start dating after I'd been, single for about 12 years, and we just hit it off, right? And we just met, and we knew we'd spend the rest of our lives together. But he had to get into EBT because it would never work otherwise. So I said, go into the first thing he says, this is too complicated. What's a brain state? What's a set point? The most important thing to know is that your brain state is like your heart rate. It changes all the time. All of a sudden, someone came in the door here that was scary to me. My brain state needs to go to 5. And so it's always changing, just like blood pressure, heart rate. And so that's good. But if you spend a lot of time at 3, 4, or 5, the brain says, okay, I'm adaptable. We'll just make this your new set point, your new default position. So there's 2 numbers, your brain state that's always changing, and your set point. When your brain gets into the set point of stress, you're going to get emotional health problems, physical health problems, relationship, work, and most problems will come, whatever your vulnerability is. So the goal of EBT is to change your brain state over and over again, to train your brain to go up, to rewire those really strong survival circuits, and have a set point at 1. Except instead of taking 20 years in psychotherapy or meditation, it takes 1 year. And so we have a program you can go into and just raise your set point. And that is the most powerful thing that anyone can do for their health and quality of life.
What about people who say that it's gone to an extreme, that they've been an addict for years, or they've been an overeater and now they're dealing with 100 pounds they need to lose, like they're in an extreme state? How do they use this to get to a better place?
When you come into EBT, you complete the EBT brain map. And one of the things you do is you find out what your set point is. And if you determine that your set point is at 5, you need comprehensive care. You probably need one-on-one therapy. You need medications because you're so far down in the brain that your brain's kind of stuck. Yeah. But you also need EBT to turn it around. And then if your brain state, your set point is 4 or 3 or 2, you just need EBT, and then anything else you want to use. But you're right. When you get down to that stage, you need comprehensive care. But the root cause of why people are there, other than their genetics and circumstance, is that they didn't learn how to process emotions early on. So if you don't solve the root problem, you are going to be overly dependent on medications, and you won't truly get back to joy.
Yeah. I know a lot of my listeners are moms who are stressed, or professional women who are always in a state of stress. But how can we use this for other people in our lives, our children, our spouses?
The most important thing with your children is you get EBT. Don't send your children to EBT because there's no one more powerful in the lives of your children than you. And when you learn how to spiral up, you will naturally teach it to them. And several of the tools on our app are perfect for children. It helps parents. The kids are all squabbling, and they use this one tool. It's called the flow tool. And what happens is the kids biologically change, their chemistry change because these circuits control, and they stop squabbling. In terms of being in with a spouse, we really welcome all people to share their app with their spouse, and we have special sessions where you can be stress protected in your marriage or in your relationship, because people care. They don't care as much about their diabetes or their different health problems. They care when their loved one they can't connect with. And EBT works quickly to help people have that intimate connection with themselves and to set boundaries with others in a healthy way. So we recommend families. We have some families where there are 20 people in the family all across the world, all using EBT. And so it was based initially on children and families, and it's really come back to that.
So, okay, let's get to the technology now, and how that came about and how people can access it and use it.
What we realized is that I was training therapists, I was training physicians and nutritionists, and I thought, wow, we've got to get this in an app. And so that's what we did. And recently we had a donation from a grateful patient of $500,000.
Wow.
And they said, we want everyone on the planet. This has changed our marriage. It's changed our health. We want everyone on the planet. So what we did is we have a brand new app that is very consumer friendly. Even though there's 5 levels of stress in the brain, you can use those levels in 3 different ways. If you are at work and you don't want to feel your feelings and you want to shut off the stress in 1 minute, you push number 1. If in fact you have 2 minutes, you want to feel your feelings more and you want to use all 5 tools if you want to and really have a heyday, it takes a couple minutes, that you push 2. And if you want to do the essential of self-therapy, rewiring trauma and addiction, you press 3, and it teaches you how to use these tools in a deep way so that you're not completely dependent on your therapist medications. You have another source of resilience.
That's fantastic. The app is called what?
Well, the website is ebt.org, emotionalbraintraining.org. The book is 123 Joy. It's just the latest book. But we want you to come there. It's only $1 to join ebt.org. If in 1 month we haven't changed your life with EBT, then you can quit. And after that, it's inexpensive.
Yeah. If there's one thing, another piece of material or message that you'd like people to have to change their lives, to feel better from years and years of your work and your research, what would that be?
It would be on the day you were born, you had all the inherent strength, goodness, and wisdom you would ever need to solve any problem. All you required were the tools to access it. And these emotional tools will be what brings you to that state of joy over and over again. Trust yourself. Trust your beautiful emotional brain, which has gorgeous resilience pathways we're not using when we think our way out of it. So don't think and don't ask yourself how you feel. Ask yourself, what's my number? And then spiral up out of stress and get that glow all over your body. That's your natural state. Your brain will do it for you.
What a beautiful message. I appreciate your work. I mean, this isn't your only book. Tell us about the other ones, because this has been part of your history.
Yeah, I have about 14 books and another 30 that are workbooks. And essentially, this book, the 123 Joy, the reason I wrote it is I'm appalled at all the people who are spending so much money and time and opportunity on the weight loss drugs. I believe anyone should take any drug they want to take. But the truth is, the reason we have an obesity epidemic is it's a stress epidemic. There are 8 major chemicals in your body that are related to stress that cause people to overeat, be hungry, be lethargic, be depressed, and gain weight. If you instead, one of those is GLP-1, which people are injecting. All 8 of them matter. If you inject one, you have to see what happens. You know, when you stop using that injection, you haven't solved the problem, because the problem is the brain. If you learn to turn off the stress response, all 8 of those chemicals naturally change, and you have the solution inside you. You have those tools for life. And EBT is the only method that has shown lasting weight loss after treatment ends. And it's completely natural and it's inexpensive.
That's powerful. And your other books.
Another one that's very popular is Wired for Joy, because that's just a general, easy read. I'll tell you the story really quick. I wrote that book for Hay House, and they didn't like the book that I wrote. And I had just read a story in a journal that essentially that somebody in my county had written a book in 12 days. So I was in New York and they say, we don't like this book that you just wrote. And I said, well, I have 12 days left to meet my deadline. Goodbye. So I went home, called all my friends. I got coffee, Diet Coke. I got whatever I had, food brought in. And in 12 days, I wrote a fun book. Okay, a really fun book called Wired for Joy. They accepted it. And it's been very popular because it's a fun read. I just sat down and just told the story with a lot of fun anecdotes. And so it's a light read and it's good. But mainly come to ebt.org and get started and learn the tools and see the difference.
I'm so excited to do so myself. And really, just of all the stories that I do, all the interviews I do, a lot of times it's let's find a quick fix for something. And I personally am about getting to the root. And I look for people like you who are going to help us get to the root of issues instead of cover them up and just find a quick fix that doesn't really help in the long run.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so nice to meet you and to learn from you. And I'll get those links and make sure and put them in the show notes.
Wonderful. Thanks again.
All the best to you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining the Natalie Tysdal podcast. You can follow along on Instagram and at natalietysdal.com. Subscribe to the show to catch every new episode and leave a review so I can continue to bring you fresh content. See you next week.